Center for the Ethiopian Educational Information and Communication Technology presents Educational Satellite Television Programs.
Hello, teacher. Hello, students. Welcome to today's lesson on obligations and duties. The last time we spoke, we learned about human rights and democratic rights. We learned that we each have certain rights that must be respected. In this lesson, we will learn about the obligations that we have when we exercise our rights. Let us get started, students. In Ethiopia, we enjoy many rights, but no society gives its citizens unlimited rights. For each of us to have the same rights, we must respect the rights of others and the community. When you know the extent of your rights, you can understand the obligations that you have. An obligation is a duty that one must fulfill. It is something that a person is bound to do out of a sense of social, legal, or cultural duty. We will look at some examples of obligations later in the lesson. Many obligations arise from our relationships with others. Our social expectations, customs, values, traditions, and even our law all help to shape our obligations. There are things that the law forbids and certain obligations that citizens must respect in order to be lawful. Let us look at one example of an obligation together. You have learned that, according to the Ethiopian Constitution, you have the right to education. At the same time, you have the obligation to respect the rules of the school. Students, can you list some of the obligations you have at your school? Take a moment to write down at least 2 obligations you have.
Students, let's get ready. Begin. Time's up. Let's get back to our lesson.
Hello again, students. I wonder what obligations you thought of. Perhaps you said you are obligated to do your homework or listen to teacher. You may have said that you are obligated to arrive at school on time and to be ready to learn. If you wear uniforms at your school, you may have said keeping your uniform neat and tidy is an obligation. You also have an obligation to protect the school and public property from damage. One of the most important obligations that should be on everyone's list is the obligation to respect the rights of your fellow classmates. This means that you treat everyone fairly and respectfully. As you can see, students, there are many obligations you must fulfill in order to exercise your right to education. We also have obligations to fulfill in our communities outside of school. We have the right to privacy. This means that we also have an obligation to respect the privacy of others. If we want to visit a friend, we must remember to knock on their door or announce our arrival. We have the right to live in a safe environment. A safe environment means that we feel secure when we walk in the streets, and we do not worry about having enough food or water. In order to have a safe environment, we have an obligation to participate in community activities. This may include helping to bring fresh water to the community. Perhaps it involves taking part with others in sanitation activities in the Cabelli. Maybe it is something as simple as walking home with younger students after school. We also have obligations at home. It is our duty to help our parents or guardians without complaining. Just as we have a right to be cared for, we also have an obligation to care for others. Students, do you think teacher has more or fewer obligations than you have? Sometimes it may seem like adults have fewer obligations. The truth is, they have even more. Not only do adults have obligations they must fulfill in their community, they also have constitutional obligations to fulfill. There is a balance between the democratic rights we expect as citizens and the duties we have to fulfill to uphold our Constitution. Can you think of an obligation you might have to fulfill towards the government when you get older? Try your best to think of one, students, and we will discuss an example together.
Students, let's get ready. Begin. Time's up. Let's get back to our lesson.
Hello again, students. One example of a constitutional obligation is paying taxes. Paying tax to the government should not be seen as a chore. It is one way that we can participate and contribute to the development of the country. The taxes that we pay are used for expanding schools and developing healthcare services. As an adult, you will have the right to work to improve your situation, but you will also have an obligation to pay tax to the government proportional to your income. Another constitutional obligation is voting. One of our most basic democratic rights is the right to vote and to elect our government. Yet, sometimes, citizens do not exercise their right to vote. Perhaps they feel that their ballot will not make a difference to the election results. Perhaps they do not feel that any of the candidates deserve their vote. Students, we must always fulfill our obligation to vote. In order to maintain a democratic system, each citizen must exercise this right. Students, today we have learned that the rights we enjoy as democratic citizens each come with an obligation to our fellow citizens, to our communities, and to the government. These duties may be shaped by our customs, our values, or by the law. Fulfilling our obligations gives us the freedom to use all the rights we have as citizens. In our next lesson, we will look at ways that we can show respect to our fellow students through tolerance of diversity. Until next time, thank you, teacher. Thank you, students.